Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a good day today. Today, we're going to be doing something with my ACR DMR. This, of course, is a rifle that I have not had for very long. It does have a lot of really cool, interesting features. Unfortunately, the aftermarket support really isn't there in the same way that it is for a lot of other guns. But we're going to be testing one of the coolest features of the ACR, just pretty much any ACR in general, not specific to the DMR, and that is going to be the quick swap barrel feature. So what we're going to be doing now, take off the handguard, is we're going to be testing its return to zero. So this guy right now is zeroed at 36 yards, which is a really good zero for a flat trajectory within 300 yards. So from 0 to 300, there's very little rise or fall with a 36-yard zero. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be shooting 5 groups at 50 yards, and we're going to be shooting 3-round groups just to kind of see how far they're moving. 5-round groups are better for overall accuracy, but that's not really what we're interested in today. Today we're just going to be looking at how the barrel shifts and how the point of impact shifts when you take out and reinstall the barrel using the quick swap feature. So right now it should be already zeroed. We're going to shoot a 3-round group, take it out, put it back in, shoot another 3-round group, so on and so on for 5 groups. So after the edge of the 5 groups, we're going to see how far it shifts, if it's repeatable and how it shifts, or if there's kind of a variation in there for the different groups. And then we're going to take a target out at 250 yards steel, and we're going to shoot a group, hit it at 250 yards, take out, put back in the barrel, see if it shifts enough to where at 250 yards it becomes an issue and you're no longer on target. The target at 250 yards is a 10-inch steel plate, so a really good size for like a A-zone hit on a human person at 250 yards. Not a difficult shot at all, but we want to see how the quick swap barrel affects that, and if the accuracy of taking it out and putting it back in is going to affect that within this distance. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead, shoot 5 groups with this guy. The trigger that's in here is the Geissele Super ACR, which is a excellent 2-stage trigger. It has like a 2-pound let off at the end of the second stage. Very, very good trigger. So we're going to shoot 5 groups, 5 3-round groups, taking out the barrel in between each group, seeing how they shift, if it's that much shift at all, and then we're going to take it out to 250 yards and see if we can continue to hit steel after swapping in and out the barrel. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get to it. Alrighty, so we have a target set up downrange with a few different targets on it, 5 different little targets. We're only 50 yards away. Like I said, 3-round groups. We're not testing for ultimate accuracy. We just want to see how much the barrel actually shifts when you take it off and put it back on. So we're going to set a control group just to verify that it's zeroed, and after that we will actually start doing our testing with it. Oh, I have it on suppressed. My bad. Unsuppressed. There we are. Okay, so perfect little group. It's slightly high at 50 yards, which of course you would expect because it's 0 to 36. So now it's perfectly zero for what it is. We're going to go ahead and shoot 5 groups. So next group is also going to be a control group. Swap, swap, swap until we get 5 groups. The center target, which is going to be our actual control group, the first group, 3-round group, was just to verify 0. Okay, dead on. And this is a very heavy profile barrel. Alright, so we have 3 rounds there, safety's on, magazine ejected, rounds out. Let's go ahead and swap in and out the barrel and see if we get any. And there is your barrel. Barrel and piston assembly. It is a short stroke tappet system, I believe. So you actually have this piston pushing up against your bolt carrier group, and that's what sends it back. Okay, let's go ahead and put it back in. Again, just as easy to put it back in for the most part. And let's go ahead and get that part down. Tighten it up. Magazine's home. Alright, now we're going to be shooting at a different group, or a different target. Again, 3-round group. And we just want to see if 0 is shifting at all. This one's going to be at the top left. We're just going to make our way around in a circle. I think one of them went a little right, so we might have a slight shift to the right. 3 rounds. Go ahead and eject that. Same thing. All right. Round in the chamber. All right. So again, now we're shooting at the top right target. Appear all to be in the same spot, which is good. Now it is important to note that I am taking it off and putting it back on in the exact same way every time, so it should be as consistent as it can be. Making sure it's nice and snug. It should, most of the time it does a little click into position, barely audible. Wish it was a little bit louder. Now we're going to go for the bottom right target. Round is in. She'll be in the exact same spot. Okay. 3 rounds left in there, perfect. Go ahead and hold the bolt back to the rear. And one more time. And what it appears to me right now is that none of it has shifted whatsoever. Again, it's only at 50 yards, so we're not expecting a huge shift. But then we're going to take it out to 250 and see if it's close enough. I know it's not perfect. No quick detach system is perfect. But see if it's close enough that in between 0, 250, 0, 300, that sort of thing, if it really makes any difference whatsoever. Now we're shooting at the bottom left target. Last one. Clear up. Alright, let's go ahead and check out the target. Alrighty, so it actually looks incredibly consistent for 50 yards and swapping out the barrels. So here's our first group. I obviously wasn't perfectly zeroed. It was a little bit difficult to tell in that scope. The glass is not great to tell if I was perfectly zeroed. There's our first group. Second group, obviously exact same area. And then we kind of move around. So we're 2 over, 1 up, just 2 over, 1 up here. So same thing. So we're 2 over, 1 up, and then move over here. It shifts a little bit more actually. So it's actually a little bit more to the right, but that's obviously a little bit of variation in ammo. Really cheap 223. Here you can tell it's actually, instead of 2 up, or sorry, 2 right, 1 up, it's actually 1 right and then 2 up. Very close though. And here, this is our last group. Is actually fairly identical to the second group and very similar to the first group as well. So all in all, it seems to be very consistent, very minor shifts. I probably will adjust 0 a little bit. I'll probably move it over at this range 2 or 3, just to kind of, or on the, just to get really close on the vertical line. That way there at 250, it's not that big of a deal. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and adjust the scope left just a couple on here. Just 2 little clicks, it's half MOA clicks. So that should get us pretty darn close to vertically zeroed on there because we were just a little bit off with this. Okay. Target set up 250-ish, a little bit further. I think it's like 243 meters, so slightly over 250 yards. 10-inch steel plate, like I said. Shooting slightly downhill, no wind. We're gonna go ahead and take like 5 shots at it. See if we're hitting it good, and if we're hitting it good, we'll swap barrels, or take it out, put it back in, and see if we're still hitting good. Okay, so at 250 it's still real high, high and right. So let's go ahead and see if we can fix that a little bit, do a little bit of adjustments in here. Still needs to go down more. Okay. So now it should be hitting pretty good. Let's see. Okay, let's go ahead, swap out the barrel, see if we get any different results. Right, you put on a glove for this. The barrel's a little warm. Go ahead and put on a glove. Barrel is now out. Rifling looks good. Go ahead and put it back in. Locked in. Flip it over. Do the same thing every time. Okay. Around in the chamber, all good to go. That's what I like to hear. It's soft lift. That's all she wrote, so I mean, it's accurate enough. Real quickly, guys, I did just want to add a few things on to the end of the video. So one thing that I do want to do testing on in the future is, of course, not the same barrel quick swap, but of course, different barrels. So eventually I'd like to have a 14.5 pin and welded and a 16-inch or 14.5 pin and welded 300 blackout. So I'll have a bunch of different barrels that I can do testing on to see how it holds zero between different barrels. Now, if you're going with different barrel manufacturers and having somebody ACR your barrel essentially and making it compatible with an ACR, you're probably going to get wildly different results than if you actually used factory barrels. But of course, factory barrels are very hard to find and very, very expensive. Now, I also did want to bring this guy up again real fast just to kind of go over it in a little more detail. So our control group was about 1 inch right and about 7/8 inch high at 50 yards because it wasn't perfectly zeroed for whatever ammo I was using that day, which is fine. So we shot our 3-round control group and then we went around in kind of a clockwise fashion. So our first group migrated just a little bit, about a 1/2 inch right, but again, this is at 50 yards, so that's really, it was about a 1 MOA shift right. The next group shifted from the control group a 1/2 inch up, so about 1 MOA up. Our third group, which was our worst group, which opened up the most, or not our worst group, it's actually a really, really good group, it's about a 1/2 inch group, which is great at 50 yards. It was just under 1 inch up from the control group. So that means it was about a 2 MOA shift up, or a little bit under a 2 MOA shift up. So, and then our last group, once again, kind of returned back down. And this one here was just to the left of the control group. So that 3-round group was about a 1/2 inch left. So what I'm seeing here is that, at least in these tests that I did, it didn't shift down, but it would shift up and then left, right, and that's pretty much all it would do. But generally speaking, 3 out of 4 times, it was within an MOA of where I had the barrel zeroed at. So what that means is, when I was at 250, once I had adjusted to a dead hold and adjusted my zero to actually the center, swapping in and out the barrels was not an issue. I did miss one shot at 250 yards, but I was aiming at the left quarter of the plate, so I was about 2.5 inches off the left edge of the plate, 250 yards. If your ammo is, if the MOA that I'm shooting out of this gun with that just ball ammo is about 2 MOA, it could have shifted up to 5 inches to the left, so that means I was off plate. But when I was actually holding dead center, like I should be at 250 yards, I hit it every time, no issues, even when swapping out the barrels. So at 250 yards, 300 yards and in, swapping in and out the same barrel, you're not necessarily going to need to re-zero it for target shooting, but if you're doing like long range precision, you are going to need to see where it's hitting. Now, something to note is it never returned perfectly to zero. So it was always off a little bit, generally speaking about 1 MOA, and at the high end a little under 2 MOA. So That's really good in my opinion. It's not perfect like some manufacturers claim, but I don't think really any quick swap barrel system is going to be perfect, but it's very, very close and it's very usable. So if I was to take the barrel off, clean it, do maintenance on the piston system, whatever else, and put it back in, 0 to 300 yards, I'm pretty much going to be good to go. Now, I don't get a lot of opportunities to shoot a lot farther than that, so for me, not a big deal. I do like it. The feature does work. It does add some weight and some complexity to the system, and most people aren't going to have any real benefit from it, just because they're not going to be spending $600 on another barrel system, especially on top of a already very expensive gun. So for most people, probably not worth it for the quick swap system, but for me, I probably will get some use out of it as long as I actually do end up getting those extra barrels. I do like the system. I do like the quick swap barrel. It does work. It does hold zero fairly well, which is good for me. And so that's about it. And one thing, if you notice, this is not the optic that was on in the video, and that's because we're going to be doing some actual accuracy testing with it. So doing it at 100 yards, at an actual range, concrete bench, sandbags, all that good stuff to see how accurate the DMR version of the ACR actually is. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and let me know what you guys think of this down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. What are you still doing here? The video's over. Wait. Why are you still here? Like, share, and subscribe. Or don't. The choice is yours. But if you do subscribe, thanks. And I like pizza. Peace off.